Good morning. Good morning. It's been a long time since I dropped a video, and I just been kind of reflective as yesterday was it would have been rather the 85th birthday of my father who passed in December 2022. And so I've been thinking about doing a video for a while. Basically, just the lessons that I've learned from his death. I was going to do 5, but I ended up with a random number such as 6. I know one of the things that I went through was there was a period where I felt as if there was more that I could have done or should have done as a son. Maybe I could have visited more. Maybe I could have, done, I don't know. I guess they call that guilt. And I had to work myself through that. That was really hard. I think for me, that was the hardest thing because my parents lived in one state and I lived in another. And so, it just was a thing where I just immediately after I was like, oh man, maybe I could have been there more, done a little more. I had to get through that because I realized, and people had to help me get through that. My mother actually helped me get through that by realizing that, I did all I could do. And so, they had a sense of community, which I was appreciative for. But yeah, so that was something that I had to work through. The other thing is, when my father died, all of a sudden everybody was so close, and so, we dealt with that. I had to navigate through that. It was hard for me because my father was a preacher, and so, for me, he was my father. For everybody else, he was, and so it was almost like this emotional tug of war where I wanted to grieve the loss, and not even the loss, right? But just grieve the death of my father without people doing that emotional tug of war with me of, he's my father too. That was hard on me. The other thing is conflict may arise. This is another thing I learned from death. Conflict will I won't say will, but it may certainly raise its ugly head. And so you have to be in a space as to, not have to, I'm sorry, I don't like to use absolutes when it's something that's just my opinion. It's certainly something I recommend being prepared for, right? And having someone who's level-headed around you who can help you walk through that space. Because if not, you could be a loose cannon going off on people. The fourth thing that death taught me was the people who show up for you may surprise. Or once again, the people who showed up for me surprised me. Not necessarily surprised. They were the ones, they're the rocks, right? We all have our rocks who are there for you no matter what you go through. And there's the people who you thought would be there for you who were missing. It was just like, yo, where are you? And that was that was hurtful for me. Because some of these people I've walked through seasons of death with them. And then when it was my season, they were nowhere to be found. I'm still, if I'll be honest with you, I'm still processing that. People who, whether they showed up physically or emotionally for me, they showed up, right? And so, there was a few people who really surprised me, because I didn't expect them to show up the way they did, and they did. They showed up hard. The other thing I've learned, people would say, "Oh, it gets better with time." I don't know how much time it is, but or how much time that no one ever told me what the time was. But we're 14 months in since the death of my father, and I don't know. Yesterday at church, I was telling someone, I said, you know what today is? And I said it as if it was a national holiday. I said, today, my father would have been 85. And then I just burst out in tears. And so that's 14 months ago, though, that my dad passed. So I don't know if it gets better with time as much as it is that you somehow find a way you have to move on, obviously, right? But the person I think about the most, like obviously, like for me, is my mother, right? Because it's not like my father lived in here with us, right? So he didn't live with me. So you go back to almost your normal daily routine, so to speak. But unless you're immediately affected, where your daily routine is forever changed, I don't know if it'll ever, I don't know. I'm no expert. This is just some of my observations from dealing with it. Um, and then lastly, one of the things I learned from death is it's equipped me, and not that I'm, once again, pardon me, not that I'm an expert or anything like that, but it's given me the heart to see others when they hurt and when they go through, when they experience the death of a loved one, right? It's like I don't want to say, I almost feel like it's an obligation, right? To reach out and just to walk through this season with them. And so it also taught me, you know, it also helped me learn that there's certain things you just don't say, right? But then there are certain things that I can say, right? I can say, it hurts, right? But you will get through it. I can say that, that it's one of the most painful things that ever happened to you. But you'll survive, right? Grief won't take you out. And then the other thing that I can say is that now you become part of this, not even part, but I guess now you've experienced something that you can use to help someone else. And I think in a grand scheme of things, that's what life really is about, right? It's helping other people. You can go out here and make as much money as you want. You can buy all the junk you want, right? But when it's all said and done, either we've helped somebody or we haven't. So, these are just my Monday morning thoughts. I hope that it helps somebody, and if you know someone that's going through grief and they seem to be struggling, you can recommend counseling. I don't think there's anything wrong with counseling, right? One of the things that, particularly if you're a Christian or a believer or, something like that, one of the things that we tend to do is we over spiritualize grief. The person who died, so for example, my father was a believer. My father was very devout, a very devout Christian. And so I have no question about his fate. I know where I know they say to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. And so I know that, he lived a life that was pleasing to God. So I don't worry about his fate. So that's where the spirituality and my belief system come into play to comfort me, right? But now from the emotional perspective, right, from the human side, that's where I try not to over spiritualize that, right? So if I want to cry, I cry, right? And I don't want you giving me, a scripture or try to spiritualize my feelings or my emotions. So anyway, so those are the things. I'm not saying I'm an expert in the field. Once again, these are just my random thoughts. I'm probably still a little emotional anyway. But yeah, I hope this helps somebody, So anyway, have a wonderful day.